Hi, this is Felicia from Woodstock 104.
Hi, Felicia. How are you? This is
I'm
Ashley.
okay. Okay, then. Thank you very much.
How are you doing, Ashley?
Doing good. How are you?
I think I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm looking at sparkly snow, which is really pretty today.
Yes, it is. It is pretty today. The little bit of sunlight that we're getting in between clouds is.
Yep. The sun is so strong in February and March. It's just really amazing how it shifts and changes.
Yep, absolutely.
There we go. Thanks for all you've done for this, Ashley.
Oh, of course. Happy to help.
It has been really helpful. My grandson is 6, and I keep telling him I'm a Luddite, and I know nothing about technology because he knows everything. But I'm not a very good Luddite because I do know some things, but at least he now knows what I'm talking about.
Things are changing too every day. Like even me, I've been doing these meetings since March, and I learn something new about Zoom every day.
It's amazing. It really
Or
is.
they make updates and something changes.
No, I just get it down and get it practiced and know what I'm doing, and then I have to start off.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. There was a point as a parent where my kids said to me, "We have told you how to do that 6 times. We are not telling you again." And I went, "Oh, now what do I do? Oh no."
Uh-oh.
My grandson's a little kinder. I think he'd hang with me a little longer.
Yeah, I have a 7-year-old and he is a know-it-all when it comes to things like that too. I'm like, where do you even learn this? Because you didn't learn it from me.
I know. I think I don't know, maybe they're born with a different brain.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just it's very interesting, actually.
Yeah.
But my grandson's like that too.
There, Tamara, how are you?
I'm doing okay. How about you?
Very. It's good to see the faces.
Yeah.
And, hi there, Ashley.
Hi, how are you, Clayton?
Very good.
Good.
I'm not going to give you 18 more pages of policies.
Oh, no worries.
I'm driving her crazy typing police policies over.
Uh-oh. That's one of my recommendations. Oh, no.
Hey, I love typing, so
You do? Oh, good.
feel free.
Great.
You know, the last one was 18 pages.
Yeah. It's a lot to keep it updated.
Yes. And Jack Ganaro's out in the lobby, and she wants to be part of the meeting. If I my office, can she be part of the meeting with us?
Jackie, you said?
Yes.
Yeah, I think she said she was having computer trouble. I did send her the link to join us. She was working on accessibility.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. She asked if she could be on my Zoom in my office with me. I mean, with everybody, right?
Yeah,
As long as you both wear masks.
Yeah.
Wear masks and sit 6 feet apart.
Yep. She got a mask on.
You got to have one too.
I have to have one too.
Yes, absolutely. And keep it up over your nose. I don't have to remind you.
Up over my nose.
Yep. Tired of
How are you, Reggie? How are you?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
Good. Doing good.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Reggie, do we know if anybody's not making it today?
I think everybody should be. I'm wait.
Okay.
John.
I'm double masked. Oh, maybe
Let me
people
just
on
text
that I
John.
don't see. Okay.
And Rachel. Is Rachel here?
Not yet.
and Anula.
See, we're on, but
Is
we're
Anula
on.
on?
I haven't seen Anula yet. No.
Okay.
Okay with me? You want me to?
No, you had your shot, right?
No, it's in there. No.
You
Put a
are
mask on, Clayton.
Not wearing.
Oh, okay.
I'm
put one
double
on.
masked.
Chief, this is what everybody's been experiencing for a year now.
This is no surprise. Wear a mask.
There's Anula.
Hi
there.
Wonderful.
Hey.
Hi.
Hey, Anula. Hi, Joe.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How about you?
Good, thank you.
It was a sunny day. It's sparkly.
It is.
Okay, we'll give a couple more minutes and we'll get started. Be right back.
Hi, everybody. We're calling in from our car.
Hi, Linda. Hi, Terry.
Hi, how are you?
Try to be warm.
Hey.
You here?
Yeah, I can hear them. Do you need a mask?
I have one. I just kind of run across the street.
Okay, no. Howdy, Jackie here. I'm at the police department. Chief had to run across the street.
Hi, Jackie. How are
Hey,
you?
Jackie.
I'm good. How are all of you?
Doing
Good.
well.
That's a good thing, right? I'm double masked, by the way.
Double man.
I've been triple masking sometimes. If two
I
is
don't blame
good,
you.
three must be even better.
And I got my EMS gloves on too. Jackie ain't playing.
You really mean business.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, I do. You know me.
You are not playing with COVID.
Mm-mm.
Not at all. It's not a game I want to play. After all
I
my
know.
years in EMS, COVID's the last game I want to play as an
Yes,
EMT.
agree. Okay. All right. Okay, everybody, we're going to get started. Thanks, everybody, for coming. So we're going to get right into it today and have our subgroups present. The order may change a little bit, but accountability is up. So each subgroup is going to get a maximum 15 minutes. Ashley will give a heads up if we're getting like maybe at that 10-minute mark and then at the 1-minute mark. And then 5 minutes for feedback or comment. Keep in mind that the subgroup may decide to just may not have a response to the feedback. They may just take it and make note of it. Okay, so 5 minutes for that. And then we'll move on to the next group. All right, and then once we've gone through all the groups, we will discuss next steps. And that will be it for today. All right. Okay. So John is going to represent accountability.
Sounds
if
good.
you would lead us, sir.
Yep, it's just Reggie, how do you want me to go bullet by and then wait for comment, or go through each bullet and then open it up to comments?
Go through
Those
each
questions.
bullet and then open up for comment.
Okay, you got
And also
it.
everyone, just to keep in mind, today, these are just the core recommendations. There's going to be longer introduction going into detail or expounding upon our reasons for the recommendation. But today is just to get like the meat or the tofu, if you will, of our recommendations, okay?
That sounds good.
Thanks, go ahead.
So this is the accountability subgroup. The members were Reggie, Chief Keefe, and myself. We held, I want to say it was about 5 meetings that included a lot of different discussions, as well as follow-up research, as well as also some time with Sergeant Adam McGrath, who also helped give us some insight on the new system that the police department uses to generate reports and collect their data. So I'll go into the recommendations. Our accountability subgroup came up with these. It is recommended that first, number one, the Woodstock Police Department, with the support of the town, complete the application process for the New York State Accreditation Program within 1 year of the adoption of this report. Recommendation number two, the Woodstock Police Department website is reactivated and maintained on the Town of Woodstock's website or as an independent website. And this supports a recommendation from the technology subgroup. Recommendation number three, the monthly reports produced by the WPD be made available on the recommended police department website. Recommendation number four, the Woodstock Town Board provide the necessary funding for all new Woodstock Police Department hires to receive a psychological evaluation, polygraph test, and a fingerprint-based background check. Currently, fingerprints are mandated at the expense of the new hire. Within that recommendation, we have sub-recommendations that include that the town board consider a clawback should the new hire on the cost of the 3 tests, should the new hire not serve a determined length of service. And also that the Woodstock, and also we note that the Woodstock Police Department estimates that the cost for all 3 requirements would be approximately $700 per new hire. And on average, the department hires between 2 to 3 officers. Recommendation number 5, that the Woodstock Police Department's officer complaint form be made available on the recommended website, and that the received complaints be automatically sent to the police chief and town board members. Recommendation number 6, we support the technology subgroup's recommendation that the town board seek quotes for 4 body cameras and actively participate in researching federal and state grant opportunities for the camerage and storage information. Recommendation number 7, the Woodstock Town Board adopts a policy that at least 1 town board member and a sitting member of the Town of Woodstock Human Rights Commission must be in attendance for officer candidate interviews. Recommendation number 8, the Woodstock Town Board establishes a Woodstock Community Police Advisory Committee that includes representatives from the community, town board, and Woodstock Police Department by the end of 2021. And recommendation number 9 is we support the Woodstock Police Department's 2021 updates to their hiring policy, which we reviewed with the chief and will be attached in the report, as well as support in the final recommendation to support for the Woodstock Police Department's 2021 updates to their use of force policy that the chief shared us with, and it was based on guidance from the state, and that policy will also be attached to the report. And that concludes our recommendations, or draft recommendations.
Thank you, John. Any public comments or feedback? No comments or feedback?
I think
Okay.
that the use of sharing information on a website is a good idea. Thank you.
Hi, Jessica. Thank you, our librarian. All right, thank you.
And I have something. There was a lot to that. Thank you. And I don't know if I missed at this point or if it'll come up somewhere else. For accountability, one thing that seems difficult for people is to hold each other and themselves accountable to things, and how they do that sometimes is a matter of training. So I don't know if there's a training down the pike that focuses on how does one hold another officer accountable? How does one learn to hold oneself accountable? 200% accountability is a term in the field, and that means we hold ourselves accountable and we hold each other accountable no matter who it is that's acting outside of the protocol and procedure. So in my job, if it's a volunteer who sees me not wear a mask coming into the building, they are encouraged to take accountability and say to me, you cannot come in here without a mask. So that level of accountability between officers and laterally within a department, I'm wondering if that was addressed in anything you said or if it's addressed anywhere else.
We can definitely, I had to go back through the manual for the New York State Police Accreditation Program because that had a list of trainings. I'll see if that included specifically I'll call it peer-to-peer accountability training, but it's also what was that?
Sorry, it also has to include how does a line officer hold the chief accountable?
Mm-hmm. So
not just peer-to-peer, but it has to go in all directions.
Okay, and that's something we can look into and do some research following this. But that's a good recommendation, I think.
Thank you, Jan.
On accountability, also, what training are the town board members or community members going to be getting that they're sitting on a board or committee, or hiring? Training is important for that.
Are you saying training for hiring, Jessica?
But well, you said that a town board member would sit on the hiring. I just want to make sure that they're trained appropriately for that, and also whoever is going to sit on the. So you did say a lot, police accountability committee. Just make sure there's training for everybody involved.
Okay. Thank you. We'll take note of that.
Anything else?
Can I comment? This is Felicia from Woodstock 104.
Yeah. Hi, Felicia.
Okay. Okay. This is Felicia from Woodstock 104, and I'd like to know, like when it comes to accountability, if there's going to be moving into the future something like a civilian complaint review board. In other words, a civilian complaint review board or civilian complaint committee that could be brought together as needed, made up at least mostly, if not all, of civilians. And also what teeth it would have.
So I can speak to that a little bit. John, were you about to say something?
No, sorry. I was just speaking to myself while taking notes. Sorry.
You'll hear, I think, in the next subgroup that's going to come up, something that addresses that. I can't say that, we're not 100% on it yet, but there is a recommendation that's going to come up around that, connecting. I can't say that it would be all just open to just residents. I think there would be a combination of some other groups, and Anula will speak to that soon. But it is something that is important to have some, I don't want to call it necessarily oversight, but accountability that's just not in just leadership on at the town level.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, and Sage said agreed. Hi, Sage. In the chat. Okay, Anula.
Okay, so I'm going to speak to what was called originally the tech subgroup. And on that subgroup is Jonathan, Reggie, and myself. We had, I think, 3 or 4 meetings, and we had quite a bit of back and forth on this. And we decided first and foremost to expand the name of the subgroup to Data, Technology, and Transparency. So this is a DT&T subgroup. And the recommendations that we are offering as a draft, open for comment, include first, that we support the accountability subgroup's recommendation that monthly reports be produced by the Woodstock Police Department and be made available on the recommended police department website. our recommendation number 2 is that the police policies and procedures be posted on the website. Recommendation number 3 is that officer training outlines be posted on the website. And recommendation number 4 is that the officers are introduced to the community in the form of a picture and a small bio, so that people are familiar with who our officers are. Our next recommendation is that the police complaint forms should be made available for download on the town website. Our 6th recommendation is that complaints, and I think, John, you spoke to this, so I'm going to modify this, that we're in support that complaints be accepted digitally through the website and an email automatically be generated to the police chief and town board members. Our next recommendation is that within 1 year of adoption of this report, the town board will seek quotes for 4 body cameras and actively participate in researching federal and state grant opportunities for the cameras and storage of digital information. The next recommendation that we're making is that a policy be established for the use of those body cameras. We are recommending that within 1 year after selecting a body camera vendor, the body cameras be implemented. And our final recommendation is to ensure that the website adheres to best practices for ADA compliance. So the American Disabilities Act compliance.
Nula, thank you.
Absolutely. Is there any feedback or comments on this?
Any feedback or comments?
It's Jackie.
Jackie?
Yes,
Jackie?
I'm on the,
Go ahead.
if I may,
Yeah.
on the accessibility committee. I had an absolutely wonderful meeting with Dylan, Peter, this week, an officer here with Woodstock Police, in regards to what are called MHL, mental health call, health law. I was curious how our local department handled these matters. As an EMT or retired EMT, I know it takes a certain type of approach. So in meeting with him, again, my goal here only to make sure Woodstock Police pays more attention to ticketing people illegally parked in accessible designated parking spaces. So being on the accessibility committee, Chief is aware of that issue that I have. He's aware of the issue. My report is pretty much already done. However, I'd like to stretch a little further into the mental health law and maybe be a little helpful in that arena if possible, since as far as accessibility goes on this committee, really my only issue is lack of ticketing people illegally parked in accessible parking spaces. And I have a question too. I keep hearing body cams. I do believe they're successful in very large cities. I'm wondering where the money would come from in our town for body cams for our police department.
We could not answer that right now, but it is something that we think is important and that will really be something for the town board to tackle as a group, but we think it's important. Yeah, so thank you, Jackie.
Okay, well, on the MHL, Reggie, I'd like to be, I mean, as far as accessible parking, I do not use the word handicap. It has a deplorable history. It's bad language to use for disabilities. I'm pretty much done with my report. Chief and I have talked, the officers and I have talked. They know the issue at hand. I have a very brief report ready to be typed up.
Okay.
But I don't feel like I want to end on the committee at this point.
That you want to, I'm sorry?
I don't feel that I want to end. I can offer the committee at this point my skills.
I'm still not, you don't want to feel like you can end?
And, like all I got was accessibility on the committee.
Okay.
The only issue accessibility in this town, other than what Bill Kennett and I are working on, which are the sidewalks and lack of therefore, with the police reform end, is wanting to see them aggressively ticket people who are illegally parked in handicapped parking spaces,
Okay.
which I see a lot of abuse of in town. We've all already talked and met. My
Okay.
report's ready, but where do I end? I don't want to end there,
Okay.
is my point. Is there something more?
Okay. All right. Thank you. Let's move on to next group. Sorry, let me see. I believe it's mental health. Is that correct? Yes, mental health. Everybody's on mute, except for me. Tam, are you on?
No, it was me. I was on mute. I was only talking to me.
Okay.
These are some recommendations that came from conversations with Joshua Gran, who is one of the organizers of the CIT trainings, with Rob and with Officer Dillon. The recommendations that we have are to increase the number of CIT trained full-time officers by 25% in 1 year and have all full-time officers trained by 2024, and to increase the total number of CIT trained officers by 25% in 1 year and all officers trained by 2024. To make a policy to use CIT trained officers to respond to emotionally charged situations, including responding to persons who are experiencing emotional disturbances of any kind. To include racial bias training for all officers and personnel. Dr. Lawson from SUNY New Paltz has a racial bias training that he'll be offering, and I know the Sheriff's Department has looked into it, so Sheriff Figueroa may have more information on that, or we could contact Dr. Lawson directly at SUNY New Paltz. Include procedural justice training on impartial and equal enforcement of the law to all officers. I believe, or I have been told, that Sheriff Sinagra in Saugerties has someone on his team that is trained to deliver that training. So that would be one way to get that. And to increase the frequency of in-service refresher training. Many of the topics under consideration need repeated examination if systemic change is to be realized. So that would be having those, I believe they're offered yearly, and having them offered more frequently so that people get more exposure and more practice around some of these things that come from socialization and contextual learning. They're tough to shift, so doing them more frequently with more practice would be helpful. Developing or continuing to develop officer wellness, to have that emphasized by the Woodstock Police Department, which could include an emphasis on trauma recovery for officers, so that traumas that are experienced in the field are addressed in a way that moves people towards recovery. In going over the Woodstock Police Department rules and regulations document that we were given, many of the sections of that document haven't been updated since March of 1997. So I know Chief Keefe and Ashley were talking about updating and typing and everything when we first came onto this meeting. The whole document itself is outdated, and some of the things that haven't been updated, community policing, bias, sexual harassment, how to respond to mental health calls, among other sections, really need to be updated. And an up-to-date manual provides guidance not just for police personnel, but also for the community at large. So that's a recommendation. And this is separate from the mental health committee that I worked on, but it is in line with some of the issues that came up. The creation of a new town commission to address issues of systemic oppression in all its forms. It's strongly recommended by many of us on this committee. So that's it for me.
Thank you, Tam.
Thanks.
Any comment or feedback?
Reggie, if I may, sorry. Is there a reason that a general public or a person from a committee, this committee cannot join in watching this police training? For instance, I know that the city of Albany has Albany Citizen Police Academy, where citizens actually go along and watch the officer being trained. It's once or twice a week held. I'm wondering if there is any way just one of us from the committee could possibly observe these kind of trainings that was spoken of. It's very interesting to me.
That is something I will definitely take note of. It's just a comment for interest in the public being able to participate in some of these.
Yeah, this is actually something. Hi, everyone. It's
Hi.
Rachel. That's definitely something we had all talked about earlier, and we were kind of waiting to hear back on that, actually, is how this committee could attend some of those trainings. I was also interested in just mentioning that in the same respect, I just want to say thank you for that, Tamara, for what you've all brought, and then also just to backtrack, one question I had was, what were the mitigating issues that created such a long-term, far-off vision for having training for the police officers in Woodstock? I just wasn't able to ask at that time. But what was the reasoning for such a long-term view?
Do you mean the space in between the 25%?
Like 24 and 25%, yeah, all of that.
Well, those are just recommendations, and they take into consideration the cost of training an officer. I believe it's about $1,800 per officer. So doing it over a period of time helps with the financial burden and the staffing reconfigurations that need to happen when someone's in a 40-hour training. This is a full week of training for the CIT.
Right, and then so my next question would just be, as we look into review, what's more important, is reaching for cameras or training our humans? And then I'm checking back out.
Thanks, Rach.
Any other comment or feedback? Okay, thank you. Next up is youth. Anyone from that subgroup?
So I was under the impression that we were two subgroups, youth and the cultural shift. Is that how we're on the agenda too? Because our recommendations are very preliminary and more pertaining to the cultural shift side of things. Is that okay?
I'm sorry, can you say that again? I'm sorry, I didn't know.
I'm just saying that our subcommittee is youth and also like the cultural shift. So, okay. So we, at this time, we do have a lot of stuff in the works. We've been meeting with young people throughout the community and getting their input. But at this time, all of our recommendations are more pertaining to the cultural shift side of things. And
okay.
Okay.
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay, and we just have 3 recommendations that we thought could take place immediately to just to start encouraging the need for like global cultural changes in thought. And those 3 are that we'd like to see all members of this committee, the Woodstock Reinvention Committee, read and respond to the Ulster County Justice Reform Policy. And we also have this in document form and links to these recommendations as well. And our second recommendation is, in an effort to extend beyond the federally mandated use of force policy, which has recently been enacted by Woodstock PD, we recommend that the Woodstock PD leadership review and model a new use of force policy based on Campaign Zero's policy solutions. And again, we have a link to that. And also that prior to dissolution of this committee, that there be a formation of a working body to take on issues identified in committee findings with an anti-oppression framework. And also, in light of these three pretty general recommendations, we'd also like to request a week extension to come back more with some of our other ideas, and especially stuff pertaining more to the youth.
Okay.
So any feedback or comments?
When you say response, how do you mean? Like just film a response and then put it on the town website?
You're muted, Maria.
We were thinking more along the lines of like having everybody read it, similar to like a homework assignment, and having space in one of these meetings to just talk about takeaways, insights, ways that some of the policies that are being enacted countywide could inform the work that we're doing here in this committee, just to make sure that we're in alignment with the larger county.
Thank you. Okay, anything else there? Maria, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Can I just ask who the members of this subcommittee are that just presented?
Sorry, I didn't introduce myself.
Well, I know who you are, but I don't know who else worked on this with you. That's all I was.
Okay, so Rachel Marco Havens was also on the subcommittee. Sage Menino and Daniel Helmer have been like the 4 core group members, but we've been having regular meetings with young people in the community too.
Okay.
With residents, yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
As well as Eamon Hill, who is with us today on the call. So I do invite, if there's anything that, if Eamon, if you did have anything you wanted to bring at this moment to just offer, that's, you don't feel on the hook, but know that you do have a voice here today as well.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add. I mostly agree with all the recommendations that were made today.
And welcome, Eamon. Thank you. Okay. So last one is training. Let me pull that. That was myself, Rob Jakaitis, and Anula. And hang on one second. Okay, so we had a few here with a couple more possible additions. All officers, regardless of full-time or part-time status, will receive de-escalation training. We did find out there was something that everyone wasn't getting, so we think that's really important, whether you're full-time or part-time. The WPD will engage an outside agency to implement ongoing top-down training for all officers involved in cultural responsiveness and related topics that can build trust and legitimacy in diverse communities. This should be accomplished with the assistance of advocacy groups that represent the viewpoints of communities that have traditionally had adversarial relationships with law enforcement. The Woodstock Human Rights Commission will review cultural responsiveness training content, provide feedback, and actively participate in training. And then Tam brought to us 2 additional possibilities that I was going to ask her to speak about.
I did mention them in my recommendations as well. One does come from the document that Maria mentioned. It is going to be emphasized in the sheriff's office, and that is the racial bias training from Dr. Lawson at SUNY New Paltz. he may be the, he's definitely in the Black Studies program. He may be the chair of that program, and he has developed a racial bias training. And when we looked at the survey, there were a small portion of survey respondents that identified as BIPOC, and there were discrepancies between lived experience of people identifying as BIPOC and those respondents identifying as people of lighter skin. So even though some of us may feel, or some of our community may feel that we don't have racial issues in Woodstock, we do have evidence of lived experience that is different. And we want to make sure that going forward, there aren't any developments of racial bias or more lived experience of differences. So looking into Dr. Lawson's racial bias training is something that we strongly recommend. And then the other one that I talked about is the procedural justice training. So it is focused on equal application of the law, regardless of people. And so those two trainings combined, we thought would go a long way to helping mitigate some of the problems that either are occurring or have the potential to occur in our community. I believe that Chief Sinagra has somebody on the Saugerties Police Force who can do the procedural justice training. And when I spoke to Rob today, he was going to check that out and see if that was a possibility.
Thank you, Tam. Any?
Can I add something to that
Sure.
as a recommendation, which we've talked about, and it was something that we were putting into our further, what we were bringing later on in the week. I really feel that the importance, even for our department, if that's possible, right, to prioritize the training of the racial bias training, cultural bias trainings, de-escalation trainings prior to officers learning the law. In other words, at this point, they learn the law and then they learn about equity. But it really makes sense to actually flip that, because if you learn a law with some context as to the humans who you will be using that law upon, then you have a different sense of how that law should be enacted. So that is a recommendation that I personally am bringing or asking for the review and to consider. It's very simple.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
That importance of order is duly noted. You brought that a couple of times, and I think that you're right on with that we do need a different order of things.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Great, thank you. So moving on for our next step. So Maria, you were saying next week you could have, you thought your group would have recommendations ready?
Yeah, we have a couple that we're in the process of just like making more final or ready for presentation. So if there's space or time to present next week, we would love that.
So what I'd like to do is have every subgroup just email Ashley. Let me think about this, and Tam, help me out here if you don't mind. Could email the entire group the recommendations, but basically it's going to be Ashley that I'm going to be working with to get them put on the town website. So there'll be a place for folks to see them, again, without our introductions yet, but just the content of our recommendations. And also an opportunity to submit feedback or public comment. Tam and I discussed what we would do is, Ashley, is there a way to, if someone is responding to comment on the recommendations, that they can hit an email and that we would get that the email could go to myself and Tam?
Just trying to think
in
of
the response?
right. There's not like a way to put like a contact sheet on our website. But we could make a Google document and link that on the website and have them do it almost like the survey. I think we can do like a contact sheet that way.
Okay. And also,
you could also make a survey, Reggie. You can make a survey that you're talking about putting the recommendations out to the people.
Yes.
If you put the recommendations as a survey, as you put all of the recommendations in the top section of the survey, then you can collect email if that's what you're looking to do, have responses to them, and those responses will just go right in. You could just leave the survey could have one question, which is like, how do you feel about this? Boom. And then people can answer and you could just move on.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great way to gather, each committee could have a survey related to their recommendations.
Okay. Also, if they send them to our general police reform, woodstockny.org with that. So Tam and I, what we discussed is having those sent out, and then Tam and I will fill those to the subgroup. So if something comes in for your subgroup, your group, to say, hey, this is feedback on your particular area. And so Ashley, we'll work with you to figure that out. For the following, when we put that and make that public.
Yeah, and I'll look tomorrow. I just made myself a note. I'll look and see if there are any other options of an easier way to kind of get direct contact via like a website or something.
Okay, so
you could do a Google form and I could help you if you want.
Okay, yeah, I think that's what we used for our survey was Google form, right?
Yeah.
So, okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
I'll take a look at that.
Make sure that the group knows, and then when it's on the public website also, it will be clear to folks how they can get us feedback so we can hear back.
Okay.
The introductions for subgroups, we're asking that they be limited, which is basically the introduction is before your recommendations, right? Talking about why you made the recommendations that you made and sharing your subgroups introduction to those recommendations. We're asking that you limit it to 2 pages or to no more than 2 pages, double spaced. And that you have those introductions ready by March 1st for the report that will go to the board the following week. So again, each subgroup, a maximum of 2 pages, double spaced, March 1st would be that deadline. Tam, am I leaving anything out that I need to?
Font size. No, I'm kidding.
What'd you say?
I said font size, and then I said
font size. Yes, font size. Tam would like it to be 20, right, Tam?
So I can read without glasses.
Yes. Could we get those directions in an email? Yes, Maria, you will get them in an email. Yes.
I'm also going to put together minutes, and it'll have this at the end of it. I'll send that out. Should be done by the end of the day tomorrow.
Okay.
Ashley, Jackie, if I may, Ashley.
Go ahead, Jackie.
Very much. You have been a godsend to me through all of this. Thank you.
No problem. Of
I
course.
will take you up on your offer next week to do my report if that's okay.
Absolutely. Yep.
You've been a godsend, and this is much easier for me to sit with the chief than to be playing with my phone. You know, we're safe, we're distant. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for joining us.
Yes.
And all the work you're doing.
And thank you, everybody, for the time it's taken and your effort to get these recommendations in. I appreciate it. Thank you to the public, especially new faces, or at least new boxes.
Does Chief have anything to say? Do you have anything
Well,
to add
Jackie,
to
I'm
this?
sorry. I'm in the middle of a sentence. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, can't hear from this side.
It's okay.
Sorry.
It's okay. So I just wanted to thank everybody for the time they've put into getting these recommendations done. Look forward to seeing the recommendations next week. And we will send out an email, as Maria asked, with clarification just about all the, I think Ashley said should make sure that that's in the minutes also. And thank everyone for coming.
Thank you, Ashley.
Yes, tremendously. Thank you.
Really, you've been holding a lot. I also want to thank all of the people of color who have put their energy into this, because it is, I understand and recognize that it's extra work for us, and in general in communities, especially like this, just life is extra work for you. So if there's anybody on this call, Eamon, I really want to thank you for taking the time and the energy that you've put into this, because not only are you a person of color who deals with a tremendous amount of difficulty going to Onteora, you also stepped up as a young person to bring your voice to this. So I want to thank you as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for all your hard work.
Thanks.
And thank you all for letting Woodstock 104 record this. And thank you,
Thank
Ashley,
you for
very
coming.
much.
Oh, thanks, Felicia.
Thanks, Felicia.
Okay.
Thanks.
Have a good night.
You too.
And thank you all for the work.